ユキ、ちょっと待てって。
いつおみさん。
ユキ。
回収。
ユキ。
王子くん。
用事ってそいつかよ。おい。
何?
I'm literally gonna wait for you. And I see you're gonna be like, nah, I'm not gonna like it. I'm just keep watching. Just subscribe. And you think the clip gonna cut right here, but it's not because I'm still waiting for you to click that like button. And the subscribe and the post notification button.
So I've made it pretty clear that I am a huge romance anime fan. In fact, I would like to say that I am a romance anime savant. I am a romance anime intellectual. I basically just like romance anime.
I was absolutely convinced that I was going to be a loser.
So you would think that when February rolls by, basically a month in which celebrates love, would be a pretty awesome time to celebrate the genre of romance anime. It would be a pretty happy time for me and everyone else who really enjoys the genre. But unfortunately, the genre itself has kind of been going through its ups and downs, and well, we've been basically stuck in this infinite genjutsu of being in high school or trying to find loving traits through degeneracy. But I think that things have changed because earlier in the season I stumbled upon an anime that seemed pretty interesting, and the anime that would end up saving my hope of if this genre could actually still survive appeared, and this anime is A Sign of Affection. Now listen, A Sign of Affection is a new anime that came out this season, so it's still, well, new, which means that right now it's not done. But I just felt so impacted by how amazing this anime was that I felt like I had to discuss it and basically spread the word that there's an actually good romance anime out there that's new. But well, for me to tell you about this awesome anime, I have to, well, tell you about this awesome anime. So basically, the story is about Yuki. Yuki is in college and, well, she does what any normal college girl would be doing in college.
Who wanna do a shot? We do! I'm gonna
Basically trying to find a job, school, hanging out with her friends, basically just being a normal person, nothing really too extra. But then she comes across an individual who will end up being her love interest, and this individual is basically a normal Gojo. He just looks like Gojo but just normal. And I know it's not fair to basically say that every person who has, well, silver to white hair is basically Gojo, but it is what it is at this point. But basically she meets this individual and her world is spun around because Yuki is deaf, which means that to kind of enter her world is not the most easiest of things to do. And in fact, sometimes that type of situation can put people off because they feel as though, well, you have an individual who can't really hear you, but also at the same time, if you don't know that much about people who are deaf, they tend to not speak that much because they don't really hear their voices, so it can sometimes result in them being shy about it or not wanting to express themselves. So basically you have an individual who is, well, quiet and also can't really hear you. So for most people it would be a challenge to kind of try and build a relationship with that type of person because there's a lot of stigma and a lot of fear with that. But weirdly enough, her love interest, he's different in that immediately when he met her, he was able to figure out that she's deaf, but his communication with her was so seamless that it just made the moment magical. And from there, her world just turned, where basically she met this individual who doesn't care that she can't hear and doesn't care that she has difficulties in certain social situations, which is a pretty wholesome moment and a pretty wholesome feeling to go through. So at this point, you would also expect me to tell you that there's more to the story, but well, not really, because it's more of a anime that represents real life. And that basically, I mean, she's a college student and she's just basically going through school, school and other stuff, which means that there's no like real direction, that every single episode has to be focused on her building this relationship with this individual. Not really. And I think that that type of loose type of direction is actually more realistic than an anime that would have a direction, especially when you're dealing with romance anime. So basically what happens is that you have these two characters who are coming from two different worlds, in that Itsumi enjoys traveling a lot, which means that he's not really the best individual if you're looking for a relationship, because he's in and out of the country a lot, which means that it would be a bit difficult to kind of build a relationship with an individual like that. And also, so far within the anime, it's been made clear that there's something about him that kind of makes him want to wander and travel the world. Now of course this is pretty interesting because you have this handsome individual who is just traveling the world and having fun, but unfortunately if you put yourself in the mindset of someone who would want to be in a relationship with him, it would be pretty challenging. And then you have Yuki, who, well, Yuki is Yuki. She's just awkward in that, well, she's shy. So if you try and get her into social interactions or try and communicate with her, it can be difficult because she's so shy and just within herself. So it kind of makes it difficult to find a way to connect these two characters, but for some reason they work out so well, because when they're with each other, they actually become one in a weird way. Because you notice that Itsumi is really hands-on with Yuki and trying to make her feel comfortable and trying to understand her a lot and express himself, whether that be him trying to learn sign language or him actually slowing down the way he speaks so that Yuki can read his lips. It's pretty interesting. So you kind of see that these characters coming together is a pretty interesting thing. But the thing that makes this anime super exceptional is, well, it's a learning process. In watching this anime, I feel like I've learned a bit more about people who are like Yuki and some of the difficulties that they had. Like the whole concept of someone never really hearing their voice ever in their life, and having to also talk about the difficulties of having a hearing aid, or also the difficulties of actually trying to get a job. Because one of the episodes really bothered me in how difficult it was for her to get a job. But the one thing that I enjoyed about the anime was that despite it being a pretty touchy subject and a pretty disappointing situation to see, because you see this individual trying to get a job, but because she is deaf, it's basically now a reason for her to not get a job, and it makes it difficult for her despite her enthusiasm. And watching her kind of be in that situation that anyone could be, of just applying for jobs and not getting it, was super disheartening. But I really enjoyed that the anime was able to go through that whole situation and just be brutal and honest about the reality of life, and that as much as we know Yuki is awesome and a good person, the realistic situation of life is that, well, sometimes life's just brutal regardless. And I really enjoyed that the anime wasn't shy about discussing that and just showing us what it's like. So within this anime you learn a lot of things, and also the thing about this anime that is so interesting is the building of chemistry. The chemistry is actually genuine in that you see them having to learn what the other doesn't like and what the other does like through trial and error. Itsumi had a situation where he thought that he could tickle Yuki because it would make her laugh, only to find out that she doesn't really like that. That type of trial and error is pretty realistic to trying to build a relationship, regardless of whether it's a romantic relationship or just a general relationship like a friendship. It's basically learning through trial and error, and I found that to be super realistic and actually a pretty interesting aspect of this anime, because with every episode you see the growth within each character. And also, mind you, it's not always about Yuki and Itsumi, because there's other characters as well trying to go through their own thing, whether they're working or basically also trying to get in relationships. But also there's other situations where characters are dealing with jealousy, in which I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a certain individual who has a thing for Yuki, and based on the fact that I'm telling you about Itsumi only, he's having a tough time. But there's a lot of subjects within this anime that are discussed, and I feel like some people have experienced throughout their lives that you can kind of relate to. And it's not always limited to Yuki or Itsumi. It's actually the people within the anime itself that kind of have little things that they're trying to do that you can relate to as well. So it kind of makes this anime bigger than what it just seems to be. So So you have this anime that is basically showing you a bit of the world. Yes, it's not that super expansive, but it's nice to see an anime that is interested in other characters that it has built up, because you see that Yuki has a pretty good best friend and you want to know what are her interests and what's going on in her life, just seeing her try and maneuver through her own situations. So you kind of basically see a lot of things within this anime, and it is super awesome. But also I have to be real about this anime in that, well, it's not the best animated anime you'll ever see. And also you could kind of target the writing, because there are some episodes that feel as though they are a bit too focused on certain things that may not apply to you. But even though it has that limitation of not being the most top tier animated anime out there, or basically having this precise writing that is just always to the point, I think that it's understandable to have an anime that is not the best animated anime out there, because not every anime can get Studio Mappa or Trigger or basically Studio Madhouse. It's difficult, but it's still good enough that you can still watch this anime and feel a pretty realistic connection, but also a warm, wholesome connection. And that's the beauty about romance anime, in that it's trying to create these feelings and emotions using colors and brightness and just lightness. So it's okay to get away with those types of less highly animated anime within romance anime, because I mean, come on, it's not Solo Leveling where you want to see really specific detailed blood or gory aspects. It's a romance anime. It's more about the story than anything.
Pack your toothbrush. And then I want you to get your socks, your shaving kit, your underwear, your prophylactics if you think you need them, and get your
And go where, Sharon?
to hell!
So though it may have some of its negative sides, I think that this anime is an anime with a huge amount of potential. In fact, it's an anime that I didn't know I would really enjoy that much, but I find myself just waiting for every single episode, because after watching every episode, there's some sort of lesson that you can take from it. People have this assumption that romance anime is basically for people who are in relationships or for single people who are down bad. Not really. I think that this is a genre that can actually teach you a lot of things, whether you're coming at it from a perspective of someone who's in a relationship or not, or who wants to be or whatever. There's something that you can take from this, because you have an anime that is going through two individuals coming to an understanding, and ultimately that's what relationships are, in that you have two people from different places or their own worlds coming together. And that always doesn't have to reflect on romantic relationships, it can be anything. But I feel like this genre is tossed into this whole thing that you're either really into girly stuff if you watch it or whatever, when truthfully it's one of the most realistic genre of anime that you can get when done right, because I know there's some weird ones. Honestly, I think that this anime can do a lot of amazing things, and we'll see if it gets a second season or not, but it's an anime that will leave its mark on the genre because it's that good. And also the music is pretty good, especially the OST, but also specifically the opening and ending. The opening has this pretty interesting aura about it that kind of creates this wholesome vibe to the whole episode, and the ending is so good that it kind of ties off that feeling with a bow. So I think that this anime has amazing music. The animation's okay, it's good, but it's okay really, and it has a good story that it wants to share. So I think that this is an anime that is actually worth a try. It's an anime that could potentially be the beginning of an era of romance anime that is exceptional, and I'm pretty excited to see where this anime goes.